Welcome in, everybody. Joe Quill's here with you. It is Thursday night, another edition of the Joe Quill Show, and got a lot to talk about here. We're even going to talk some things that um, we don't normally talk about as well, like NASCAR. Uh, but big news coming out from there this afternoon. Breaking news this afternoon, as a matter of fact. Um, one breaking news story led to an unfortunate second breaking news story. We'll get to that. And a lot of NFL talk here as well. Um, really couldn't find that much to talk about tonight. But it's all good. It's Thursday night. Maybe it'll be a quick night with yours truly, and we'll get you on your way to wherever you're headed to finish out your night here. So hope everybody's doing well out there. Um, and we're calling it Chillin' Like a Villain tonight because it got cold here. Just like I said it, just like I now granted, I didn't see anybody walking around the neighborhood or when I went to the didn't hear anybody screaming like that either. But um did hear that um but yeah, I mean, I didn't see anybody dressed up like winter had arrived again. But me, I'm the type of person that wears shorts from, just like daily savings time. Well, I wear them around the apartment all year round. Now, granted, I kind of, you know, during the winter, since I got the heat issue resolved over this past winter because it was just way too hot here, and so much heater, plumber, technical stuff that I couldn't even, I just nodded my head, said, "Okay, I understand what you're doing," but I had no flipping clue. But I just know that I can do what I have to do with the to get the right amount of heat for this apartment. So, but um, it is a lot colder, and I had to put pants on today. Now, granted, I'm in shorts now, but I got a little bit of a surprise when I opened my window today because it's not warm out. I mean, it's very raw out, and you know, just the way it is right now. So, but really, really weird weather here in the Mid Atlantic region here, especially in Philadelphia where I am. So, but but I hope everybody's doing well out there. We're almost at the weekend and a 3 day weekend on top of that. So you get an extra day off. And just to let you guys know ahead of time, and I'll remind you at the end of the show tonight, Mike and I are taking off on Monday to observe the holiday. So no show on Monday night. We still will have also eligible on Saturday. I think AJ is going to be on, but if not, I'll be flying solo. That's okay because we're going to look at some of the races there at Santa Anita, and I'll advertise that towards the end of the show as well. So, um, but um, so we'll see what happens with everything, and hopefully. Um, I was watching an OOTP stream, and by the way, I'm wearing the OOTP 27 shirt, just out of coincidence because it was like, all right, well, it was near the top of the basket of clothes I just washed yesterday. I'm like, I'll wear it today. Love the game. Trying to do some work on there. And by the way, just giving an update here. Knicks are up on the Cavs 53-49 at the half. And the Montreal Canadiens may have caught the Carolina Hurricane at the perfect time here because Carolina had an NHL record 12 days off between games, and they gave up 4 goals in the first period to Carolina. Carolina scored 40 seconds into the game, if that, and um, Montreal scored at the 1 minute mark, and he scored 3 more times. So I'm going to keep an eye on both of them for you. How successful I'll be is another story here. I'll be more successful with hockey, but you know, we're in the conference finals right now, and soon we will have 2 champions, and we'll have nothing but baseball for WNBA, but you know what I mean. But I recognize WNBA as a sport, so but now what some people do call a sport, some call a sport and some don't, is auto racing, whether it's NASCAR, Indy, whatever. But tragic news out of the NASCAR world today is Kyle Busch suddenly passed away today at the age of 41. And he was a guy who every year, if he could do it, would run both the Indy 500 in Indianapolis. As soon as the race is over, helicopter over to Charlotte Motor Speedway and run into Coca-Cola 600. So he would race 1,100 miles in one day. And that was something he did numerous times. But unfortunately, he passed away at the age of 41. Way too young. Especially when, it's way too young, whether it's a crash, whatever the cause of death is, it's always way too young. And especially something like this. So, very, very sad. I don't care. It's kind of like it may not be up there with, in a way, hopefully I'm making sense of this because, I'm not the biggest NASCAR fan, but I recognize, it's a sport and, it's 99% left turns and stuff like that. And, and I joke around about the other things of NASCAR, which aren't as prevalent now because NASCAR has expanded beyond the southeastern or southern parts of the United States. But this may have been, and this is just me spitballing at this, it may have been should I say, the most shocking death since Dale Earnhardt. I don't know what you, we all kind of know where we were, even if we're not NASCAR fans, of one, how Dale Earnhardt died, two, where we may have been. I was probably in my basement or, probably just hanging out with friends or something because, you realize that you realize that 41 is way too young. And also, this is something that just escalated quickly. And I have some information about that over some of the things that he was saying here, because, and also some of the things he said at Dover just 4 or 5 days ago, because he won a race there last week. I think it was a Truck Series race. We'll get into that in a second. But now they had just announced earlier today um, that he had been hospitalized as a result of a severe illness. Now, the thing is, you see something like that, and now, mind you, you do have HIPAA laws in the United States, so we may eventually find out with the family's permission what it was, and we may never know. But I imagine there is going to be an autopsy just for the fact that this sounds like something that was some medical malady, for lack of a better term, that has um, that came from. Now, I mean, it looks like it came out of nowhere. Now, if I knew doctors where I could say, what do you think this is? And I would be very careful with that because of the fact that, we don't know everything, but, like, it's just really sad that someone who just won a race 4 days ago passed away because of a health issue. I mean, we don't know. I mean, especially those that are more in tune with NASCAR, we don't know what the issue was. You know, we don't know how much he would have been suffering over the last week. And I'm sure, um, the family, Richard Childress Racing, who he raced for, and NASCAR in general, I'm sure they knew something. But a lot of what we do, and it's like, yeah, well, I'm okay. I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty of it. Oh yeah, I'll go. Sometimes it clears up, sometimes it doesn't. But something like this was something that, from what it looks like to me, could have been something that just happened. I mean, it's just a tragic thing that occurred, and prayers to the family and everyone touched by this, because um, just a sad turn of events here. Because I mean, it's one thing that someone tragically passes away because of a um, plane crash, car crash, something along those lines. But something that's health related that comes out of nowhere. I mean, um, and we see it once in a while in sports, but we don't see it where, at least it appears to the general public, goes from 0 to 100 in 0.1 seconds. But um, but I mean, he was even scheduled to compete at the Coca-Cola 600 Charlotte Motor Speedway. I do not think he was going to race in the 500. At least I think he used to do that. Now I'm now I'm looking at this article. But um, so there was a joint statement today from me see here. That's not working. So let me see if I can zoom in on this. That doesn't work either. Okay, so I'll have to read it to you. Hopefully, you guys can see it. Um, you should be able to see it. Okay. Um, actually, let me do one thing here because I think this will help a little bit more for you guys if you want to see what this says. Okay, so there we go. That should help. Um, our NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle Busch, a future Hall of Famer. Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport and fans. Throughout a career that spanned more than 2 decades, Kyle set records in National Series wins, won championships at NASCAR's highest level, and fostered the next generation of drivers as an owner in the Truck Series. His sharp wit and competitive spirit sparked a deep emotional connection with race fans of every age, creating the proud and local Rowdy Nation. Our thoughts are with Samantha, who's his wife, Brexton and Lennox, who are his 2 children. Kyle and Samantha's parents, Kurt, his brother, and all of Kyle's family, Richard and Judy Childress, who are the owners of the group of the Richard Childress Racing, and his teammates, friends, and fans. NASCAR lost a giant in the sports today far too soon. During this incredibly difficult time, we ask everyone to respect the family's privacy and continue to keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Further updates will be shared as appropriate. So I imagine, as we get me back on screen here, I imagine we may hear something, but we may not. I would imagine that we probably do hear something because of the fact that this was such a tragic thing. And definitely not something you expect something to happen to a 41-year-old, no matter. I mean, now granted, with NASCAR, you could, I mean, even though it does weigh down the car, you can be a fat slob like me. But, there's also little things with, um, um, little things that, you could get, stuff like that. So, but there's more here. Um, so, I mean, his accolades and his history on NASCAR. He's a 2-time NASCAR Series Cup Series champion. He ranks 9th all-time in all-time Cup Series wins with 63. He holds a record for 234 combined wins in the NASCAR Top 3 Series. He holds wins record for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, which is the minor leagues and developmental league for NASCAR, and for the Craftsman Truck Series. The O'Reilly Series is 102 wins, Craftsman 69. At least that's a nice number. He won a Cup Series race in a record-breaking 19 consecutive seasons from 2005 to 2023. His most recent win came just 6 days ago at Dover. His most recent Cup win was June 4th, 2023, at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. He had competed in 397 straight starts in the Cup Series, the 4th active longest streak behind Joey Logano at 624, Brad Keselowski at 592, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 412. So, even if he hadn't been winning the last couple of years, his numbers are mind-boggling. But Now, I'm going to play something here for you because this is something Dr. Jesse Morse shared, excuse me, on X today. And hopefully this will come up clear.
Kyle Busch
Okay, so this is the first time I'm actually listening to the audio here. So, and hopefully this doesn't get me a copyright strike of any sort. But I think this is pretty important with, in hindsight being 2020 as it always is. Um, you know, and of course, one person said, "Kid just lost a father, wife lost her husband. Now, you're trying to analyze this." Um, is he analyzing? Yes and no. I mean, yeah, he is, but he's probably let me see, where's he from? No, it doesn't say where he's from. So he's probably a NASCAR fan on top of everything else. But here's exactly what was said during this NASCAR race.
Kyle Busch has been suffering from a sinus cold all week. Lost 5 spots on that pit stop. He has asked to have medical attention available after the race. Here's his radio.
And can somebody try to find Bill Heisel? He's the Hendrick doctor guy. Tell him I need him after the race, please.
Hey, do you want Mr. Bill at your car or at your bus after the race?
Bus. I'm gonna need a shot.
Copy. He'll be at your bus.
Racing can't be any fun when your head is completely stuffed up like that.
It's the worst. and a bow in front of the fans that are all on their feet down here at the Monster Mile. And Michael Waltrip said earlier in the race that a confident Kyle Busch is a dangerous Kyle Busch. Your 69th victory in this series, your 5th right here. Why do these moments never get old, Kyle?
Because you never know when the last one is, you know. So I know all too well, unfortunately, with the Cup stuff, but you know, here with the truck stuff right now is it's awesome just to be a part of Spire Motorsports. Thanks to Jeff and Dan and Mr. H for the opportunity. HendrickCars.com. I'm sure it looked great out front leading the race, and it wasn't just Kyle Larson doing it. So you know, feels good to have another Kyle being able to do it and putting ourselves in victory lane. So love coming to Dover. Always one of my favorite places to race, and definitely some managing of the fuel there, managing of the tires there, and you know, it was an interesting, just kind of strategic battle, I guess, from the driver's seat. And you know, thanks to all the fans. Appreciate everybody for being here at Dover and the Monster Mile for All-Star Weekend. We thank you, and hopefully we have another great O'Reilly race tomorrow and an even better Cup race on Sunday.
And a
I did not have my mic on, so you might have had about 3 to 5 minutes of me not talking into the. But you did get to hear that video, but that's the reason why I wanted to mute. But it's odd that he says you never know when you'll have your last win, or you know, the exact verbiage. You get the idea. But it is, you know, just really weird how everything fell into line there. So, but I think that was more along the lines of he knew that his career as a driver was starting to wind down. It had nothing to do with any health issues. But, you know, the one thing I will say is, you know, life cut way too short. And prayers to the family, condolences to the family and everyone connected with Kyle Busch, because that, you know, 41's way too young, plain and simple. But so we need to get off of this topic here and, you know, try to get things a little bit better in here. Even if we talk about some things where you just shake your head over a move that was made. Now, I'm sure we shook our head at Howie Roseman here in Philadelphia for numerous years before he got pushed to the back offices when Chip Kelly took over, and he came back with a vengeance. Turn the other TV down because that's getting a little too loud. There we go. Okay. So sometimes you have, you know, some lean years, you know, and I think sometimes players just don't work out, or injuries on the field make things worse and exacerbate your situation. But Joe Schoen gets a multi-year contract extension, pairing him with Coach John Harbaugh for a few years to come. Right now, as an Eagles fan, I could mockingly say thank you. How many more guys can you scare and force them to come to Philadelphia? Like Saquon Barkley. But I think, I don't know how many years this deal is for, but I think this may be a situation where they may, and it may just say how many years later on in this article, but I would imagine that this is probably a situation like the Phillies did with Rob Thompson. They would give him a 2-year deal because they didn't want to have him as a lame duck manager. And especially the way the Philadelphia media is, oh, we're firing him at the end of the year. Even if his contract is up and he doesn't come back, even if it's his own thing, oh, he got fired. Well, you can't fire somebody if there's no contract with a player or manager or whatever. But he figured to be the guy who he figured he would be a ripple effect when Brian Daboll got fired in October, in October. But Schoen was entrusted with driving the coaching search that ultimately produced Harbaugh. And they've worked together through free agency and the draft. So right now, everything's working well from what we know between Schoen and Harbaugh. I think that from what it appears, it is 2 equals. So it's not like it's, I'm in charge here, not you. Oh, no, I'm the one in charge. And you get into this ego match. But so Schoen said earlier this week while sitting alongside Harbaugh at a Giants town hall in Manhattan, said, we were able to get on the same page right off the bat in terms of what we were looking for, in terms of team building, trying to find the right type of guys to fit our scheme and our system. Now, the thing is, Harbaugh is probably going to use pretty much the same offense and same defense that he used in Baltimore all these years. And you do have a running quarterback in Jackson Dart. The most important thing that I would say that that they need to do is, make sure they keep things on an even keel here. Nobody's bigger than the other. We're both working together towards the same goal and also with Harbaugh, I'm sure he's going to teach Jackson Dart to get down, to take that hit, and to not take that hit all the time. Living for another play without taking a hit is what you want. And the one thing I will say about running quarterbacks, and I say it about Jalen Hurts, but it's not always the case, because you're going to start seeing with Jalen Hurts more and more starting to lose a step. And when you start losing that step, the defense seems to be a little bit faster. But Jackson Dart is only in his second year. He could be the guy who really gets the job done and, can cause havoc. Now that he knows the offense, now he knows, well, granted, he's got to learn a new offense this year, but you got a guy who can definitely help with that. But but Schoen came over to the Giants like Brian Daboll did from the Buffalo Bills. But if you remember, the Giants went 9-7-1 in his first season in New York. They made it to the playoffs. They beat the Vikings. And then they got their ass kicked by the eventual Super Bowl champion Eagles. But since then, they've gone 13-38. Schoen even admitted missteps as a result of early success during the 2022 campaign. I think in some regards, if you think about it, if you raise the bar too high too soon, in a lot of cases, that's what gets you fired. Sometimes it's not even being close to being what you expect somebody to be. Sometimes you're an epic shit show, and sometimes you just don't do the job. But but there were a lot of injuries involved as well. But I think he has the confidence in Harbaugh. He has somebody he's working hand in hand with, so that Harbaugh can get the guys that he feels that he needs on offense and on defense. So, but Giants ownership liked the way Schoen had worked collaboratively with Harbaugh. And John Mara, one of the owners, said last year he thought the organization's decision-making process was the best he's ever seen during his time with the team. The franchise is optimistic about the future, especially with Harbaugh as the coach and Jackson Dart as the quarterback. They're also overjoyed with the most recent draft class, beginning with top 10 picks, linebacker Arvell Reese and offensive lineman Francis Waigoa, however you pronounce that. But I think sometimes there is a saying, something along the lines of what you are what your record says who you are. Most of the time, yeah, but not all the time. But yeah, I understand what John Mara is also saying, because he's putting the pieces in place. And with football, we know about the injuries. Unfortunate things do happen, and next thing you know, you're looking up the standings and you have a top 5 pick. But sometimes those top picks don't really work out until the second year for whatever reason. But in Jackson Dart's case, it was a bunch of injuries, and but I will say this, and it may just be, for example, it may just be because of the fact that you have a it may just be because they're the team of the future in the division. And I don't say this because we're talking about Joe Schoen getting an extension. But we know Howie Roseman has had numerous duds in the draft, and then all of a sudden it's like, where's this drafting coming from? But I will say this. Sometimes you just get, all of a sudden you just get things start to click. Some click earlier than others, but in this case, it's a lot different. But yeah, so I just think in terms of just checking something here. But I think that the Giants are in good shape here. I think that he may be. Trying to find the one thing I'm looking for here, and I can't find it. But I will say this. I think the Giants are, and it may not necessarily be this year, but I would not be surprised if the Giants are the team that gives the Eagles the most fits over the next couple of years. Or even, even this year. I mean, Washington, you would think that they would bounce back after last year because they fell apart because of injuries. I would think that the Cowboys are probably more downward, and I can't take Dallas too seriously because one, they have Dak Prescott, two, Jerry Jones is still running things, and you got to wonder how much time does he have left above ground, and you wonder if he's going to get some glory hole or not. But yeah, so but I'm just worried about a lot of this. I'm worried more about the Giants than I am the other teams in the division. Now, it may not be next season, but I would say 2027, when they really know how John Harbaugh works and all that. I think 2027 could be they could be the team that could be a major danger in the NFC, not just in the NFC East. But I think you have to give them one more year. But that's just me. But the one thing is that could lead to issues with Joe Schoen is his personality, but that may be stopped a little bit because he has John Harbaugh, and especially if they're working together and it stays kumbaya. His tenure has included hard negotiating and bad blood that drove away some players. Now, we could say that bad blood led Saquon to the Eagles, but I think that a lot of the bad blood with Saquon was even the year before he got here. The year before Joe Schoen got to New York. So, and I think that the I think New York, they did have their concerns because nobody was paying Saquon or any top back what the Eagles paid him. Oh my God, 15, 20, whatever it was for Saquon. We're not doing that. And truthfully, if I was a Giants fan, I would have been more pissed if they let him go and he ended up with the Eagles, a division rival, than let's say if he went to Kansas City, he went to Denver, he went to LA with the Chargers. But the fact that he stayed in division and you got to face him twice a year now, not what you want to see. But But Shane is considered most responsible for not re-signing Saquon Barkley and allowing him to walk as a free agent to the Eagles. I guess I got to watch that documentary or that Hard Knocks if it's still available so we can see. But you get the idea. But and Shane was also a factor in Dexter Lawrence requesting a trade, eventually ending up in Cincinnati. So. Now, the Giants are betting on stability and Shane's ability to learn from mistakes. And who knows? Maybe having somebody like Harbaugh there that they can go hand in hand and work together and reach the same goal, maybe that helps them. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants make a major improvement. Now, what you would define as a major improvement, I'm not sure. Because let me just see something here. Because they went 4-13 last year. Now, does getting to 9 wins mean that, or is it 8? I guess that's what Giants fans have to decide. What's that big leap going to be? Going from 4-8, 4-9, 4-10? Because I don't think with Harbaugh there, I don't think they're going 4-6. I think they go minimum 4-8 or 4-9. But we'll see. But he gets a couple more years, and I guarantee you, if they go 4-13 again, and the players that he brought in, whether it be draft, free agency, or whatever, they fall flat on their face, he's gone. I don't think they're afraid to do that, but this could end up being a one last shot. So who knows? But we'll see what happens with that. So I did see this one as well. This popped up today. Matthew Stafford lands a 1-year extension for $55 million. Now with incentives, that means he can make up to $60 million. He's now tied to the Rams through the 2027 season with $105 million remaining on his contract. And I don't know what that means in terms of salary cap or anything like that. So, but Now, the Rams used the number 13 pick in the draft on Ty Simpson, who's viewed as his eventual successor. Now, I would think, and maybe this is a trend that's going to go back into, that may be restarted with Vegas. And who knows, it may be as well that Fernando Mendoza probably does so well in training camp. Let's pretend, he may do so well in training camp, and I imagine you may put him out there for one game and hope you don't have a situation like the quarterback in Minnesota has, where he had a torn meniscus and next thing you know he's out for the year. With Mendoza, you figure, hey, you got to get him some action before you can make a decision. But you may get to the point where even if you don't start Mendoza day one, you may get to a point in like week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, or the week after the bye, whatever week that is. It's like, we need to start Mendoza. Or you may be forced into it because you never know. Kirk Cousins may get injured. Or he just may beat him at camp. But whatever it is, Ty Simpson, probably the same thing. But unlike that situation in Vegas, this one you have a number 1 quarterback that's going to be there for 2 more years. So they're actually taking the Green Bay route with him, where they did it with Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, he announced that this season is allegedly going to be his last. And I say allegedly because of the fact that when you watch that video, he's kind of smirking when he says it's his final season. Now, take that for what it's worth. But the Rams are going to have 2 years left with him. Aaron Rodgers spent 3 or 4 years waiting for Brett Favre to leave Green Bay when he got forced out. He made Jordan Love wait a few years. And I don't think there is one real surefire method, because for Jaden Daniels' rookie year, there's always a quarterback. And I'm going to say Ryan Leaf for lack of a more recent name that failed quickly. For every quarterback that has succeeded from day one, there's a quarterback that sat and then succeeded, and there's guys that failed from day one, and there's also guys that sat and collected dust and rust and never became anything. So every player is going to react differently to this, but you got to make sure you know what the whole mental capacity of the player is on top of their physical, their physical talents as well. So, but this will be Stafford's 18th in the league, and he survived his buddy Clayton Kershaw. Now, the Rams did win a Super Bowl with Stafford in 2021. He turns 39 February 7th, 1 week before the Super Bowl. Oh, by the way, at SoFi, where they won in 2021. So, he led the NFL with 4,707 yards. as well as 46 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in his MVP campaign. Everybody was thinking, oh, he's going out on top. But when he accepted his MVP award in February, he announced he would return for the 2026 season. I'll see you guys next year, he said. And then hopefully I'm not at this event and we're getting ready for another game at SoFi. So, but he will be back next year, or he'll be back for another year in 2027, and he will be paid accordingly. So, but yeah, so also Aaron Rodgers announced that this was going to be his last year, but do we think it will be? I mean, it's possible, but the way that he smirked when he said it a little bit, you know, it makes you wonder. So, kind of have an update on the Chicago Bears here. This is why I always say plus whatever comes up, because I went to look at the NFL standings, and when I did that, I ended up on the main NFL page at first, and the Bears reiterate that the Chicago stadium options are exhausted. They are continuing to look at building a stadium in either suburban Illinois or Hammond, Indiana. Bears have exhausted every opportunity to stay in Chicago, which was our initial goal. There's not a viable site in the city. As a result, the only sites under consideration are in Arlington Heights and in Hammond. It appears again to close the door on the team staying in Chicago. That comes after team president Kevin Warren said last month at the NFL meetings in Arizona that the Bears were hoping to choose a new site for an enclosed stadium in Illinois or Indiana late in the spring or early in the summer. They played at Chicago Field for over 50 years. Indiana lawmakers are attempting to lure them from the Windy City with the plan to finance and build a dome stadium in Hammond, about 25 miles from their current home on Lake Michigan shore. Illinois General Assembly responded with legislation that would give tax breaks to so-called mega projects of at least $100 million, a plan that would encompass the Bears' proposal to build a complex on a 326-acre tract of land they owned in Arlington Heights, and that is the former Arlington Park racetrack. That's a place where when I would go to Chicago for the Phillies games, I would go to Wrigley for 2 days, and then I'd go up to Arlington. Warren said both the sites are excellent sites. So they began in the NFL in 1920 as the Decatur Staleys. They moved to Chicago in 21. They have never owned their stadium, whether playing at Wrigley Field from 1921 to 1970 or Soldier Field ever since. So interesting fact there. But just for the sake of, because, a lot of people call the New York Giants the New Jersey Giants. I call them the Hackensack Midgets. Oh, I'm sorry. That's midget's an offensive word. Yeah, so's whatever. But I will say this. As much as Arlington Park is hollow ground to me, because so many great horses ran there, I would love to see them stay in Illinois at Arlington Park in Arlington Heights as opposed to Indiana, even if it's over the line by this much, because the Indiana Bears, stupid stuff like that. But even though they're in the kind of metropolitan area of Chicago, they're not in Chicago proper. But so many cities, so many teams aren't in within the boundaries of the actual city. The Giants and the Jets, perfect example. Buffalo's in Orchard Park. The Rams and Chargers are in Inglewood. The Atlanta Braves, they're in, what is it, Cumberland County, outside of Atlanta. So you get the idea. So it's just they're representing that area, and it's, it's corporate, it's this, it's that, so many different things. But I did mention the horses. And no, not Arlington Park, but also eligible will be live, and just a different card here as well, as you can see there. Also eligible will be at Santa Anita. We'll be looking at the races at Santa Anita. We're not going to be at Santa Anita because that means I have to get on a plane and find a way to get there. But we'll be live Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And we're going to be looking at the 5 stakes races on the card here. So we'll look at those 5, see if we can give you guys some winners, and get you ready for a holiday weekend. And also, there is a contest that I like to play. It's called Survival at the Shore, which is through 123 Racing. That contest begins on Saturday. So survivalattheshore.com, I believe it is. I got the alert that the first set of picks are due on Saturday. Yeah, and it runs from Saturday to let me go here. And you have to enter by 11 a.m. on the 23rd. And they give you free programs for the races that they're looking at as well. These races will be on America's State, the racing on FS1 or FS2, depending on what channel as well. So we'll get into that as well. So just an update here. It's 4-2 Canadians over the Hurricanes in Game 1. They're about a minute and a half into this third period. The Knicks are winning. They are up 88 to 80. Just give me some updates on that as I try to get some of that caught up for you here. So I did see this today. It might have been last night, but Nolan Smith of the Eagles, I believe he went to Georgia. So this may explain some of the let me find him on here. Yeah, he went to Georgia, and Georgia's has had its share of reckless driving cases over the years. But he was in Georgia. Whether he was near the Georgia campus or not or whatever, that's irrelevant. But he was arrested last week in Georgia. He was accused of speeding and reckless driving. Now, get this. And this is why he was arrested and not just given a ticket. He was driving allegedly 135 miles an hour in a 70-mile zone. I don't think I want to see 135. even if I was in a NASCAR car, because they do have like for example, Pocono, they have these ride along type things that they have where you can go like 130, 140, 150. You can experience some of that stuff. And that occurred last Friday night. So he posted bond and was released on the night of his arrest. His court date is set for July 14th. Now, he would not need to appear in court if he pays the fines associated with the arrest citation. So he just received citations here, which, I mean, and once again, not only am I not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. And this gets into those areas where the law portion of things, I have no clue. But when you talk about, player, player conduct, player, all other stuff, But he was a 2023 first round pick. And, this is probably the worst time that this would come up because I don't know if they exercise his 5th year of his contract or not. But, you're in that, if they haven't made a decision yet, this may lean towards, do I want to deal with this? Because, and the one thing is, even though it was 30, 35, 40 years ago, you don't want a Jerome Brown situation, whether you're driving alone at a $135 or driving with someone in your car. Because Jerome Brown was speeding and ended up crashing and killing him and a family member. I forget if it was a cousin or whatever, but so, and once again, Nolan Smith is expected to play a significant role in the Eagles' defense whenever he's available this season. And the one thing is, this article I found on CBS, they say that the league is likely to investigate the reckless driving incident under the personal conduct policy. Now, I think anytime you see somebody getting arrested, you're going to investigate. Oh, what did he do? Now, the one thing you have to remember, labor law in most cases supersedes federal workplace laws. So a lot of what and this is a combination of me being a steward for the union I was with, as well as taking a law class for my sports management degree. Even though, like, for example, the Maurice Claret story many years ago, he said, well, what they're doing is illegal, but this is an agreement between the union and the NFL. Kind of like how the NBA, the Players Association and the NBA have an agreement that they cannot, that, they got to be a year out of college. So football, having is 3 years after high school, it makes sense because a lot of I don't want to say kids because they're not kids. They're like just becoming adults. These young adults, that's probably the best term. These young adults need to have that time in college, which is now basically minor league football with NIL and everything. You need a couple years of that before you get to where you want to be in 3 years so that you're ready and you can transition, even though you do have different things that can go either way. But I just think, not only is it physical, it's also mental. It's maturity even with that, because, you're getting a bunch of money that, you never thought you would make. You got to, even though, especially now with NIL, you not only need them to be prepared financially. I mean, you have to prepare them financially as well as when it comes to physically getting into the league. But when it comes to something like this, another thing to remember when it comes to discipline, whether it's a personal conduct policy, whether it's something because a player got ejected like Jalen Carter did the first game, and they said, well, he didn't technically play a play in this, so game 1 is going to be technically his suspension because he didn't play a game, so he's not going to get paid for the game, but he ends up losing that. So, but now, will Smith face punishment? And by the way, Montreal has just scored. It's 5-2. And you would think that this is rust for Carolina because we'll get more into that in a second. But the league has been pretty lenient with players when it comes to punishment for speeding and even reckless driving, unless there are other circumstances with the incident. Now, Myles Garrett, as CBS Sports cites, has been cited for speeding at least 7 times since entering the NFL and has not faced league discipline for those actions. Mainly because, for the most part, even though he may have been ticketed, he may have been cited, he may have been arrested, there was no bodily harm involved, which could lead to lawsuits and things like that. The only thing you see in the legal system here is, okay, well, you went 135, how do you plead? You're going to get fined X amount of dollars. But, and we all know the Rashee Rice situation, which has even led to the point where he's now in jail for 30 days, if you remember from Tuesday's show. He received punishment for speeding or racing violations, and that incident resulting in injuries to passengers or people in other vehicles. And he also left the scene, I believe. So you have to know everything that's going on. You can't just say, oh, he's getting 3 games. Well, if I got 3, well, what about Myles Garrett? What about this incident? And the NFLPA, they would have millions and millions of things that they can look at so they can say, you got to rescind this. So I would not be surprised that nothing happens here, but like I said, a lot of what you have in labor law, in the whole disciplinary process in union labor, is past practice. So if you look at this and you put him in the same breath as Myles Garrett in terms of what he was doing away from the field and not getting anybody injured, then Smith probably does not get suspended. I'm sure the NFL may, I mean, who knows? Maybe the NFL makes him go to counseling. I don't know. I'm speculating. I don't even know what the NFL does with stuff like this. But now the league could and arguably should change its stance on these types of incidents given their prevalence. But it has thus far not shown a desire or willingness to aggressively punish players for driving-related incidents that don't result in injury or other charges. But here's the problem. Past practice. And if you're going to make a major change like this, it has to be collectively bargained. And I don't think the NFLPA will allow that just on the fact that you have a lot, I'm sure there's many more players that have been caught speeding and have not had any type of major injury. So I would say that's what I was looking for, that book. So I would imagine that is what you want to see in these cases. You have to, just like everything else, look at past practice, and if you can if the NFL can find something where somebody got suspended, but you got the whole Myles Garrett thing, and that's going to be the part that leads you the other way. So I did see let me just scan this real quick. So LeBron James also, he expressed uncertainty about his NFL future on the Mind the Game podcast with Steve Nash. He reiterated that he needs time to think about what he'll do entering an offseason where he'll be an unrestricted free agent. James said, I'm still in the moment of just taking my time. I haven't even really thought about it too much. Obviously, I understand that I'm a free agent. I can control my own destiny, being here with the Lakers for a foreseeable future, or if it's going somewhere else. But like, I haven't really gotten to that point. I haven't taken my family vacation yet, which is going to happen after Memorial Day. That kind of thing at the forefront of my mind, but I think that at some point in June, late June, as July rolls around, free agency starts to get going, and as July rolls around, and maybe in August, we start to kind of feel what my future may look like. James reiterated his family would be a priority. He and his wife Savannah have 3 kids: Bronny, 21, Arizona guard Bryce, who's 18, and Ziri, which is 12. I think that's how it's pronounced, but I'm guarantee I'm butchering that. He's coming off a 2-year, $101.4 million contract, with the Lakers include $52.6 million salary for last season. So the options he will mull over are retirement or play a record-extending 24th NBA season, either after resigning with the Lakers or signing with another team. He says if If it's continuing to play the game that I love, which I know I can still give so much to the game and play at a high level, or if it's not. But I haven't gotten to that point yet. When I get there, it'll be fun to see what the future could hold, either if it's, like I said, in another arena or another year or not, for another year or not. James Charnia said on the Pat McAfee show, James agent Rich Paul, who's the Clutch Sports CEO, told him that virtually every contender has called Paul about James since the Lakers season ended. James reaffirmed if he returns for 24 season, it'll be a franchise where winning is the priority. He said winning's most important because you want to be excited about going to work every day and being around a group of guys that feel the same way and try not to take a step backwards. Understanding the season's a marathon, or whether the case may be, but those building blocks throughout the course of the season is what matters when you get to the sprint, which is now the postseason. He scored 20.9 points in 60 regular season games and a career low 33.2 minutes per game. But, here's the thing. And let's just look at his career in general, just the length of it. Not necessarily the points. Even though he's one of the greatest scorers, but he's not Michael Jordan. I will say that. But I think one of the many reasons that LeBron has survived 23 years in the NBA, one is he was one of the last to get in directly from high school. And the other is the fact that medical, everything with getting in shape and everything like that, the whole science of getting yourself into shape and everything associated with that has helped him immensely. Even if you want to say that he's been clean all these 23 years, because other sports you start talking about performance enhancing stuff. So I will say this. He benefited from advances in medicine, advances in science, all that stuff that would help somebody extend their career as long as he has. But can he survive? Eventually he is going to be retiring. And he may be the anomaly like Tom Brady was when he played, 25 seasons, whatever it was. I'm sure there aren't going to be many people, if at all, that are going to play 23 seasons in the NBA. So, he was able to take advantage of what it takes to play all those years. Not only playing regular season, but playoffs year after year after year. And he's held off Father Time for 23 years. It's just a matter of, can he, does he want to play next year? If he does, where? But, so I'm not going to say he's the GOAT, but I will say that he has taken advantage in a proper way of the technology and the advances in medicine and science during his career. So I will say that. Once again, also eligible live Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, looking at St. Anita, and we'll try to get you some winners there as well. So, whoops, don't want that, want this. There we go. All right, that's it for the show. And I do appreciate each and every one of you for joining me here. We'll be live Saturday morning at 10 a.m. No show on Monday. We're observing the holiday. I do take off the holidays. And we'll be, and if you don't join me on Saturday, join me on Tuesday night for another edition of the Joe Quill Show, as who knows what we'll get into. But that's it for now. Do appreciate everybody, and I'll see you guys in the winter.